everyone, welcome to Ferraris Law's YouTube channel. Today we're diving into a topic that's both practical and important: alternative dispute resolution, or ADR. I'm here with Christine Ferraris from Ferraris Law. She's our experienced attorney, and she's going to break it down for us a little bit. Christine, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Lizette, for putting this together and taking the time. I appreciate it. I think ADR can be important and it's something to be aware of. So I'm happy to share the information in terms of how my clients or our clients actually have used it and how it can resolve a dispute without having to go to court for, a long period of time, which often is the case when you're, in a dispute and the case has been filed.
So let's start with the basics. What is alternative dispute resolution and why is it significant?
So I think why it's significant, it provides a forum for folks, whether it's an employment situation, whether it's a contract situation between businesses, or whether it's a consumer issue related to some business, where they have a place to go and there's a third party involved, and usually it's someone who's experienced in the law, so they can provide some insight into how they see the situation, and they sit down and they discuss what they normally would by going to court, but it's a little bit more comfortable, it's a little bit more less formal, and it helps parties to move towards a resolution. And the person that is acting as a third party, whether it be a mediator or arbitrator or a judge, or just somebody who's experienced in alternative dispute resolution and acting as that impartial party, they will help you find a resolution there, and that's their goal and purpose, is to find the resolution and to kind of explain exactly what the guidelines are, and then maybe in a half a day or a day, depending on how complicated the issue is, help parties to narrow the issues, or at least, or maybe find a resolution that both can accept and avoid protracted litigation, and it can be very efficient relative to court procedures and things, but it does require both sides to agree to be in that forum. So that's what one party might want to do, that and the other may not, for various reasons. And sometimes it can be more cost efficient, but sometimes it can't be, because those third party advocates that work in this realm, their fees can be high because of their experience, but that initial investment could pay off and get the situation resolved, which can avoid legal costs down the road.
Right. So one ADR method we hear a lot about, like you also mentioned, is mediation. So can you explain how mediation works, basically?
It's usually not a binding type of resolution, whereas maybe arbitration would be. So you go in knowing that you're going to try to resolve it, but if you don't, then you'll go to another form of ADR, or you may file your lawsuit. Mediation is sometimes during a lawsuit, parties will decide to go to a mediator to see if they can resolve the situation. And again, the mediator is someone who's going to help parties find a mutual place towards resolution. They will often give you their opinion on the strengths and weaknesses of your case, as an arbitrator might, but an arbitrator is going to be acting more like the court, whereas the mediator is really someone who's trying to help parties negotiate.
All right, now that you mentioned arbitration or an arbitrator, I want to know how is it different from mediation, basically?
Yeah, well, as I just mentioned, arbitration usually is a binding sort of forum where if you decide to use that instead of go to court or mediate, you are bound by the decision of the arbitrator, similar to a court, and you're going to be paying for that arbitrator, which the fees are usually $400 to $500 an hour, which is expensive. And when you go to court, you're not directly paying the judge, as it, our public funds pay for the judge, but you are paying for a lawyer. And if you go into arbitration with an attorney, you're paying for the attorney's fees. And so while it can be efficient, it helps to know who the arbitrator is and that arbitrator's experience, just like with a judge. So a lot goes into making that decision. And what you'll see now, a lot of the commercial disputes between business to business, they'll seek arbitration because it can be more efficient, and they're sophisticated parties and they know exactly. And so they do use that. I don't strongly recommend consumers to subject themselves to arbitration without really knowing exactly what the forum is, because a lot of times the forums are what we call the American Arbitration Association, and then we have this other forum called JAMS. You're going to have to follow their rules, and it can be expensive. And so it's something to be aware of when you're signing an agreement that says that you give up your right to go to court and that you are subject to mandatory arbitration. So it may not be something you want to be subject to. And so understanding that is really important when you see that in financial contract, a car purchase agreement, financing of a car purchase, construction loans, those kind of things. You really want to understand what that means and what you're giving up.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you for explaining that. I didn't even realize there was so much things you should look out for and what you can consider. So that is really helpful. I wanted to ask you, what about settlement conferences? How do they fit into the ADR landscape?
So the settlement conferences are used in litigation and in arbitration. Mediation is like a settlement conference, really. It's basically, parties coming together and trying to settle the matter. And settlement conference might often come up when you have filed the case, and as part of the court procedure, they want to see parties try to settle the matter, and usually with another judge who's helping that. And so you seek a request from the court administration and say, well, we'd like to sit down and with a judge that's not the judge as part of our case, and see if we can settle this matter, bring the issues to them, bring our evidence, prepare a statement of some kind as to exactly where each party thinks their strengths are and their weaknesses are. And sometimes that statement can be confidential and sometimes it can be shared. It's up to the parties. And generally, again, that judge or mediator will see, give their opinion as to, how they see the case if it doesn't resolve. And so that can be really helpful to understanding your case even better, and then maybe even to resolve it. But again, two parties need to agree to in good faith to participate in that. And sometimes, another side will say that they are agreeable, but maybe they're not as forthcoming and willing to go to the middle, because that's what usually happens for settlement to actually be successful. Parties are going to have to give up on both sides, and some are less willing than others.
Yeah, I think that can become quite a thing if two parties don't agree on something, and then there's like this whole volcano of eruptions that's happening. But I can see how that can help.
Yeah. And I just want to mention, it's really important. A good mediator will help parties to come together, and they're skilled at that. They have experience doing that, and they've really, that it's another profession. It's often lawyers who have practiced for a while will turn to becoming mediators and decide that is what they decide to do, rather than to continue to be an advocate for one. They decide that their choice of continuing to work in the legal field is as a mediator to help parties resolve situations to avoid costly litigation.
Yeah. I think that's for me personally. I think that's a noble cause because you're
Yeah.
trying to keep and getting it, but I think it's very difficult to get it sometimes. So I have a lot of respect for anybody who wants to try to do that. So then why should someone consider ADR instead of going to court? I know it can be costly, but what other reasons might there be?
Well, if both parties are open and willing to some form of alternative dispute resolution that is fair and reasonable, and they participate in good faith, it can be more efficient. You still have to prepare for it like you would for court in a lot of ways. But as I said, it's informal, and you can actually have somebody hear about your case before you might in court. The courts are filled with lots of disputes, and judges and the court administrators and things, they have a lot of cases that are getting filed more and more every year. And so it's taking longer to actually get to a trial. There are summary proceedings where you can file, but it could take a good 2 to 3 years to actually have your case heard by a judge. Now, in that time, you could have a settlement conference and so forth. But I think in terms of timing, and then the fact that one of the things in settlement is that you can be how you want to resolve this. And when you go to court, it's a risk. You're asking the court to do something on your behalf, but you don't know how that's going to get decided. In settlement, both sides can come up with terms that that are important to them, and the mediator can help make it a settlement that maybe and make suggestions. Say, hey, well, if this is important to you, maybe we can add this to the settlement, and it becomes a settlement where both parties have participated in, and the disposition they both have contributed to. So, and that can be more meaningful when and then having been heard and party hadn't been before.
Yeah, I think that is very valid points. I also, if ever I run into a problem like this, I would also try to do, alternative dispute resolutions, me personally. So I think it's a better way of approaching things if you still have a choice in the matter,
Yeah,
So
yeah.
before.
It's always a
then I
good
wanted-
consideration. It's definitely always a good consideration before,
Yeah.
filing a lawsuit. And a lot of like what we do is that we'll send out a letter explaining the claims and try to seek resolution before a case is filed. And so that is in some ways another form of alternative dispute resolution. We don't have another party being involved, but sometimes as a result of that demand letter and letter to the other side explaining our client's position, it does bring some negotiation and talks of trying to resolve it, which although we don't have it here, it is a negotiation. So any form of negotiation that can help avoid costs and bring resolution is, I would say, is an alternative dispute resolution mechanism.
Yeah. So I know this month we posted a blog about alternative dispute resolution. So I wondered if there is any other place that people can learn more about, ADR and which method they think might be right for them. And like I mentioned, folks, we did post a blog, so you are more than welcome to visit our website. Under the blogs tabs, there is our new blog this month regarding ADR. So Christine, do you have?
Yeah. So yes, and I do think you provided some links in that blog post or the firm has. And so, yeah, and I would suggest going there. I would also suggest wherever you live, the court usually has a website, and they may have an explanation under the court websites about alternative dispute resolutions and how a private party can seek that help. There are private forums, and I mentioned the American Arbitration Association. You can look at they have different types of arbitration. Some are for construction contracts, some are for consumer versus a business, some are for commercial, which would be business to business. And so those forums provide, a good background on how they work. JAMS, which I mentioned before, and I don't remember what the acronym before is for, but it is a mediation forum. And they also have an explanation of how they work. So these, and then there are often local agencies that help with mediation, and then and sometimes in the workplace and so forth, there's going to be a way to also seek help to avoid a dispute getting out of hand. And so I would, depending on what the dispute is about and what you're thinking about, I think the internet is a great tool, and the court websites, and just even putting in alternative dispute resolution, and then maybe even the subject about what you have a dispute over may provide some insight.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christine, for shedding light on this important topic. ADR is clearly a valuable tool for resolving disputes effectively. And folks, if you enjoyed this video, please remember to like and share this video. Or if you have any other legal topic you would like us to discuss, please leave it in the comments below. Thank you for watching.